right. So there's so many different issues to speak about here. I want us to start off, we've started off already, but I want us to continue talking about a very interesting facet that you mentioned to me via our communication, and that's through this march, you're also trying to show government just how many people you would have to arrest if they were really trying to enforce legislation. Speak to us about that.
Well, as a first point, if I look at my close friends and friends of friends who smoke, just by arresting them, I'm sure you'd see you'd see it in the economy. Just if you look at the positions that they fill in jobs, these guys fill high positions. It's not like people who smoke cannabis are restricted to being McDonald's attendants and whichever job that people associate to cannabis use. There are highly successful people who use this, and that's with the march we want to show government. Cannabis isn't a restricted culture. It falls over all cultures. It has no racial boundaries, no cultural boundaries, no religious boundaries. Literally, I know people from all facets of life that use cannabis. So that's showing the versatility of cannabis culture.
John, take us through the current legislation as it stands for a South African citizen to purchase cannabis. What would be the implications currently? And then take us through how you want to see that changed.
Okay, currently it's very grayscale almost. Depends on the police officer that busts you, depends on the magistrate that you get. You could either end up with a record for a small amount, or you could end up walking away for a larger amount, depending on the people you get in the system. But as far as I have it on a legal note, the magistrate the judge has the right to sentence you 5 years for possession charge, which is similar to way more severe crimes. But we're still processing people for cannabis on that same system.
Interestingly, if we look at the number of people you anticipate to march on the 9th of May, let's say 10,000 people, and let's presume each of them is in possession, that would mean making space in our prisons for 10,000 more people in Cape Town on a hypothetical level.
Yes,
is
on
what
a
you're
hypothetical level, they could arrest all of us, but now you take those 10,000 people and you remove them from our economy and you put them in prison. They're not creating money anymore, they're using it for no reason. According to the ADA, the Anti-Drug Alliance of South Africa, they did a study on what it costs state to process someone for a possession charge with no actual criminal record at the end. And it's almost 20,000 Rand per person to go through the system. Police salaries, checking in, paperwork, logistics, court level, and it goes on and on. Eventually, you've spent that much money to do nothing or ruin someone's life. I'm sure 80% of students in this country, just based on me handing out flyers at universities and seeing the response from people and how many people have tried it or actually use it, you take somebody who's studying law, they've experimented with it, now they go and buy this much, which is nothing. You get caught with it, you can never become a lawyer anymore. And that might be someone who could have been a great lawyer, but they get that cut off from them for a plant, which is where I'd say that's where I want the legislation to change. At minimum, I expect decriminalization. Fine someone for having this drug whilst we're working on new legislation for legalizing regulated sales of cannabis. But in the meanwhile, locking people up and giving them criminal records for possession of something which is virtually harmless is flawed, according to me.
John, now correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not proposing that we stand outside the local primary school and dish out cannabis.
No.
What we're looking at is regulations like we have with alcohol and cigarettes in the country, an age limit and purchasing from specific sellers.
Yes, licensed sellers, regulated sales. By the word regulation would mean that we're taking the people outside the schools away from the schools, because by having a regulated seller, he would actually know, if I sell to a child, it will kill my livelihood, because if it's a business, he will follow the regulations. Like alcohol sellers, you do get people who kind of float under the radar, but it's very scarce. With cannabis, a dealer will sell to you whether you're 9 or 40, doesn't matter to him. His livelihood is simply selling off what he has as fast as possible. To him, there is no moral obligation to society. It's simply money, which is also why I say legalize, taking away the power from criminals. If you look at a criminal organization, it's a business, and no business can survive without a revenue stream. And currently, criminals' primary revenue stream is drugs. So if you cut cannabis from that stream, you're not only taking away one of their primary revenue generators, but you're also taking away their capacity to push other drugs onto people who come to try cannabis.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because many of the comments that we have on News 24 when we discuss topics like this and write about topics like this are concerned parents, understandably, and loved ones who are worried that they call it a gateway drug,
yes.
that by allowing their child, their loved one, their partner, whoever it is, to have legal access to a drug like marijuana, that would lead to something more sinister.
Yes.
Won't you give us your opinion on that and your
Yes.
organization's position on that argument, which is really prevalent in South Africa?
Yep, yeah, it is a big issue, especially with people feeling they want to protect their children. Once again, my previous point, by legalizing, you actually protect your children. And then as the gateway effect goes, they like to slap the gateway effect on cannabis as when you use this drug, it will mentally trigger something that will make you want to use other drugs. This, from personal experience, I can tell you it's a lie. The thing that makes people try other drugs in general is because the guy that they're buying cannabis from also sells, etc. And when you buy cannabis from him, he knows if he wants a return client, selling cannabis to you won't bring you back necessarily, because even the dealers know that cannabis isn't addictive per se on its own. So they try and push all the other more addictive drugs onto you, saying that, well, this is illegal and all of these aren't as bad for you either. And when you put them all in the same basket, somebody tries cannabis, the next time they come back, they're like, I did not go crazy. I did not kill my flatmate. So how about let's try the more hardcore drug? And that's where you get the rollover process. But bringing it back to step A, if you want to slap gateway drug on anything, alcohol. Let's start with alcohol, because alcohol is the main gateway to everything. If bad choices have been made in life, generally it's because of alcohol. I find a person who's high, when they face the strange choice to make, will go for the safe option because they're paranoid and weed kind of makes you cautious. Where alcohol, you give someone alcohol, that same choice comes up, they don't even think about the negative side, they just take the leap. So for a gateway drug, I blame alcohol predominantly because of the fact that it takes away your inhibition, takes away self-control.